start recording it. So I'm just going to do that now. I'm going to start recording. And this will be pretty basic, setup for Google Classroom and, kind of some tips and best ways to use it. But then I'll also leave it open for anybody who has questions. Feel free to stop me. And so then that combined with some of the other videos I've made in the screencast, so we'll hopefully kind of have everybody covered. Here, I'm just going to share my screen here. And so have some of you, let's see, Alex coming in here. Okay. Hi, Alex. I'm just getting started right now. And so have some of you never used it before at all? Classroom? Okay, great. All right, so I'll go over, I'll start with the basics and kind of show you the setup stuff. And then if people have questions, let me know. And then I can also, just meet up as needed if people want additional time. But these are some of the things I'm going to cover today. So going just the basics of creating a class, adding students, adding a co-teacher. That can be really helpful if you teach the same course as someone else. You can kind of share assignments. I'll go over that. Archiving class, that's just kind of end of year, but some people have forgotten to do that. If you use this at all before, and then kids keep seeing all their stuff. And then the two main views are stream versus classwork. I'll go over that. You can create topics, and then you can schedule assignments, which is really convenient. And they actually just changed it in the spring where you can now schedule assignments for multiple classes at the same time. You don't have to go in and do each one. And then I'll show you how you can reuse posts if you have other classes. And then if you're interested in creating or using rubrics. So first, the very basics, you'll see here, I have all these classes here. That's probably, I actually just unarchived a few of mine from last year so I could show you more stuff. Most of you, this will either be blank. Well, yeah, it'll probably be blank unless you've played around with it at all. And then I also created this one here, this English 8 demo class that I'm kind of just using today to play around with. This is a class that Andrea taught last year, but she added me as a co-teacher, and I'll show you why that's beneficial if you teach the same thing as someone else. But this is kind of the general interface. The very first thing you'll do, you'll see these three lines here will bring up your list of classes, but if you don't have any yet, that'll probably just be blank. The very first thing you'll do is this plus sign in the top right corner is how you create a class. Now, I should say, if you teach multiple sections of the same class, or if you teach different classes, you'll want to create a separate Google Classroom class for each block. So you'll see, like last year, I taught C, E, and F English. It was all the same class, but I created 3 different classes because that keeps it much easier for collecting work. So you don't have stuff coming in from different, some kids on Blue Day, some kids on Gold Day. I think it's just much easier to have it divided up by section. Yeah, Jason?
Hey, thanks. So I have 2 exploration classes. And again, this is a me question rather than a we question. So my apologies for that, everyone. I have 2 exploration classes that are rather large, and they take place. So one takes place one block and another one takes place the other block, but I have to split them. So they go to study hall half the time and then they come to me. So I'm there every time, but I have a section 1 and a section 2, for example, for B block. Should I create a Google Classroom that is B block section 1 and then a Google Classroom for B block section 2? Because even though they'll be doing roughly the same things, they'll come on different days. They'll have different students will be in each section of that same block. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. I remember I taught one of those too back when they were called pullouts. I remember. And I would say as long as as the kids are always in the same, either like B block group 1 or B block group 2, I would create 2 separate sections. Because you'll see, I'll show you later on in Classroom, you can assign things to certain students, but if you had them all in one, you'd have to do that every single time. You'd have to do like, okay, these 8 students, you'd have to check them all off individually, and assign that to them at this time, and then do it the other way. So I would, if I were doing it, I would just create 2 separate sections or 2 separate classes.
And you mentioned earlier, and again, if this isn't a good time to ask questions, let me know and I'll save them. But you mentioned earlier that once you create all of these classes, and we can see kind of your landing page here for Google Classroom, and you said the students will be able to see all of this. Does that code that you send out give them access to all of these little tiles here, or just that?
Oh, so that's a good question. No, so for them, it'll look different. So like for me, for Lachlan, because I know he's going to be in your class, he'll see like A block math here, let's say, and B block, Japanese, C block. So his will just be in whatever classes he's in. And you all can do this, and kids can too. So you can drag and drop these. You can put them in whatever order you want. You can play around with them that way. But so the students will see only the classes that they're enrolled in. And so, feel free, anybody, if you have questions, it's probably easiest to just interrupt, because I know sometimes I go fast or if I skip over something, but you'll see this plus sign here. I don't know for sure, but I think like for our middle school division meetings or high school division meetings, they might also have us join a class as students. I don't know for sure if they're going to do that or use the Google Sites, but you might see some in here that you're a student in, and some, the rest obviously you'll be a teacher for.
David, I have a question about students viewing. Is there a teacher view and a student view button on this site?
Not exactly. So like these are all just classes that I'm a teacher for, but if I were a student in a class, it would also show up here. But then once you would go into a class, it would look different. Like when I click on classwork here for the one that I'm teaching, I can see like which students have turned stuff in. If I were a student in a class, I would just see, this would just be my assignment, and I would only see my work, if that makes sense.
Would you see all the other assignments in the classwork?
Anything that was assigned to me that I'm in the class, I would see, but I wouldn't see, when I go to all these other things and I can see how many students turned them in, how many assigned them, you wouldn't see any of that. It would just show your own document.
And can you turn off classwork buttons so the students don't get confused as the year builds up with lots of different assessments?
Well, good question. So the classwork is kind of where most stuff lands, and that's why the topics end up being really handy. So you can divide it up by, like for me, for English, I do it by book usually, or you can do it by like unit or theme or whatever you want. And then they can click around into these different sections and see, what's useful for them.
So classwork really becomes those tiles like on Power School Learning, where, so for example, you would have one, I forgot what it was called, but you might have one section that's called basic info about the class, and then several documents where one document might say, here's how my grading works. And the next document would say, does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of. Well, so actually, let me step back for a second. So when you create a class, which will be the first step, here, I'm just going to create a new one so you can see what that'll look like. So create a class, class name. I'm just going to call mine. Actually, one tip, I would like to put the block in the class name. See up here, I can just see it on the edge here. It says my so-called life C, my so-called life E. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to call it like English 8 A block, and section is, again, I'll just put A block, subject English, and then room is 6204. So you just fill that out and you click create, and you can do this now if you want to, or you can just watch and this will be recorded and you can come back to it. So you just fill out that info, and then it always takes a moment here. And so this is the very basic first view that they'll see, or that you'll see. You can, if you click here, customize, you can change the theme. You can upload your own picture if you want to, or change the color if you like. That's certainly optional, though. You don't have to do that. And then, so this is kind of the very first basic page here. It's called the stream, where you can put in like announcements. Here you could say, welcome to the class, or whatever you want. And then what you'll want to do on the first day is invite the kids. So, well, let me tell you, there's a couple different ways to do it. When it says, if you click on people up here, if you click this plus sign, invite students, you can get kids one of two ways. You can send them this link, or you could search for them all. I wouldn't recommend doing that, because I think that's kind of a waste of time, because instead what I do is I just, on the first day of school, I say, everybody go to Classroom, click plus and join class. And then it's this little code right here. And there's this kind of magnifying square here. If I click that, that'll come up there, and it takes literally less than 2 minutes for them all to just click join. They all, type that in. I usually freeze the screen on this, and then I go on my own computer, I click back to people, and they'll all start popping in right here. So actually, if anybody wants to see what it looks like, because I'm going to delete this later, it won't matter. If anybody wants to see what it looks like and you want to join, if you click plus and then join, if you just want to, see, I'll put this in the chat if you're curious. If you're interested to see what it looks like from a student view, but you certainly don't have to. But so if people did that, then I would start seeing them pop up in the students. So that's like the very first basic stuff. In this stream here, you could say something like, remember there's a quiz tomorrow. If you want the kids to all see this, and they would also get an email about it, you could add in like a link to something in Drive if you want to. But this stream is really mainly for like announcements and things like that. And then they'll see anything from your classwork will also pop up in the stream. So any assignments. So this is kind of the first page they'll come to when they join your class. But the page that they'll really mostly go to is classwork, or at least that's what I find most useful. And I didn't put this in my directions in the email I sent out the other day, but how, does everybody see that we're all creating Google Sites? And I know, Alex, you had a question about that. I'm going to get back to you because you'll want to create a site, for your class with all the info. And so, Jason, to answer your question, what I would recommend doing is just creating a click create, and then I'm going to click material, and I would say like click here for course information. And then if you click here for link, I'm just going to put a link to my Google site. So that way I don't have to repost all of that stuff on Classroom as well, like the course description, the grading breakdown. It'll just be, they can click it there and it'll take them right over to my Google site. Does that make sense?
Yes, but can you more succinctly explain what Google Site is? Because I just had all that on PowerSchool Learning, so I think I'm still wrapping my brain around ideologically the difference between PowerSchool Learning and Google Classroom. I'm still not quite sure what, am I creating another tile for each of my classes and I'm titling it Google Site for block acting?
Yes. Yeah. So basically, let me explain real quick. And I'm also presenting about this at both division meetings. So if I sent out a big long email about it, but if don't worry about it if you didn't see it yet. So basically Google Classroom really only works for students. Parents really can't see it. They can sign up for like a weekly digest where they kind of see like your kid's missing these assignments, but it's nothing like, in the past where they could see homework. So Classroom is great for kids, but the school wants us to have something also that parents can see. So they've asked us each to create a Google site. So I sent out an email with a video, a screencast, and a link, and I'm going to present it at the opening meeting too. But basically, you're going to get this. It's this template that I created. See, it says in template gallery, and you just kind of fill out that stuff that we used to have on PowerSchool Learning. The class description, all this stuff, and it'll eventually look like here's one of mine. The one for my English class, it will have just like the class description, essential questions, all this stuff. But the good thing is that unlike last year, you don't have to keep this up to date anymore. Like once you fill out this stuff at the beginning of the year, you never have to post like homework or anything on there. So let's see. I did this the other day, but I'm just gonna show you what it looks like. Yeah, you'll see in the video and when I present to the meetings about publishing all this, because you have to make sure that parents will be able to see it, obviously. So view published site. Yeah, okay. So what I'm going to do on my Classroom for all that info is once you've made up this site, if you click this little link here, the paperclip here to copy a link to it, I'm just going to take that and, on the first day, I'll put this link on. See, I created a new thing called material. Click here for course information. And then I'm just going to paste the link right in here, and then it'll be right there. I'm going to create a topic. This is right here. Whenever you create material or like an assignment or a question, you can always create topics. So I find that really helpful. Depending on what course you're teaching, it might be like by unit or by theme. For me, I usually do it by book, but for this, I'm just going to put like course information, and then that link will go on there. So I'm going to click post. So kids will right away, if they want to see all that stuff, they'd be able to click here and go into that and see they could see all that info. So basically meaning that you don't have to post it all twice is the advantage. What I would say though, Go ahead, Jason.
So just to wrap that up, so I'm making sure that I get this in my brain correctly. So basically, you guys have created a link that brings us to almost like a Google form that creates a landing page for back to school night, correct?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like, it's all this info like this, and then there's a separate little tab up here for back to school night. And so I created the whole template. So really all you have to do is, if you have it from last year and it's all the same, literally all you have to do is like paste in your stuff into the template, and that should be really easy. And then once you're done with the back to school night thing, you never have to go back to it till the end of the year. It's just really, they want a page where parents can see the info about the class. But that's really all you have to do with that. So I don't want to get too far. I don't want to confuse you too much. So for right now, I'll mostly just stick to the stuff about Classroom. The Google site, like I said, I'm going to present about it later this week on Wednesday at the division meetings. So you'll see all that there. So don't worry too much about that right now. But the basics for this. So whenever creating a class and adding students, like I said, the easiest way is just show this code on the first day of school for each block. And then even if a kid misses, you'll see them all populate in this list here. So you'll know, or if a kid transfers into your class, let's say, they change their schedule and they move into a different block, you can delete them. I can't do it now because I don't have anybody in here, but you can remove them from a class and then have them join the correct one or whatever you need to do. So that's all pretty easy. One other thing that I'll show you that is something that I find really useful if you teach something with other people is, again, on the people list here. If you click this plus sign for the teachers and you add someone else, that's really useful because then you can share assignments. So I'll just go back to my course list here. Like you can see for last year, I had Annie and I both taught, at least one section of the same thing. So I added her to this class, and then she added me to this one. And the reason why that was useful is because when if she creates let's say a quiz and I'm teaching the same thing and I want to use it, we can reuse each other's work. So that's really helpful if you teach, things with the same people, or even if it's just some kind of activity or whatever, you can share it. So that's why I do recommend not just adding the kids, but if it can be really beneficial to add a co-teacher. I will point out one other thing real quick. If you do that, when you click these 3 lines, you'll see at the very bottom list of all your classes are the settings. One of the things about Classroom is you do get a fair bit of email if kids like resubmit something, or if they turn something in late, it'll let you know. But you obviously don't want getting that for a class you don't even teach. So if you go down here to class notifications, you will want to, if someone adds you as a co-teacher or vice versa, you want to just make sure I'm going to turn off these so I'm not getting notified every time a kid in Andrea's class turns in something late. You don't want to see all that would clog up your inbox. So if you do go the route of wanting to add a co-teacher, that can be helpful. This, if you haven't used it before, this won't be a problem for you because you have not used Classroom. But at the end of the year, you want to just click these 3 dots and click archive, and that just gets it out of your main view. It's always still accessible if you click these 3 dots or the 3 lines, and I go to archive classes. You can see everything. That's I just say that because you would never want to like delete a class, because you can always go back to it if there's something you need to see how you did before. You can always see all this stuff in an archive class. If I click on anything, it'll say down here, class is archived, restore it to add or edit anything. So you couldn't change anything there, but I could see, oh yeah, I taught a book a few years ago, I'm bringing it back now. What was that activity I did? You can see all that in your archived classes. So if you're brand new to it, I know that's not a concern yet, but just at the end of the year, you don't want to delete anything. You do want to just archive it. So let me just take a second too and just explain that really all Google Classroom is a way that it organizes everything in Google Drive for you. So you'll see that each one of these classes has a folder. If I click that, let's see, that's my new one. So there's nothing in there yet. Here, if I click this one from last year, it puts it all in here. Now you wouldn't want to do anything with this, but it basically this is really what Google Classroom is. It's like an interface that keeps everything organized for you. So you don't have to, I don't know if anybody tried to do it in the old days where we had the kids all create their own Google folders, and then we were having them like drag stuff in and share it with us. And it was a nightmare because it didn't really work well. So that's in essence what Classroom is. It's just a way to collect the work and keep it all organized. So they added this feature a couple years ago to create topics, which also keeps things simple. Because I know somebody said about if you just click on that thing, the stream, it's just kind of an endless list of posts, which is hard to find anything on. So under classwork, you have all these topics, and for these things here, you can drag and drop them around. You can move them up or down if you need to, and it'll change over here. So one of the most important things that we have to do is just keep the kids aware of what homework they have and what goes on in class. So I have this one that I keep this at the top all year long. I call it agendas and homework, or you could just call it homework. But so if you click, you might want to do that right at the beginning. If you know what your topics are going to be, you could click create topic. I'm going to do it. I don't want to mess around with this class. This is from last year. So I'm just going to, so let's say I know that the first thing I want to do is create this agendas and homework topic. So I have that. And then when I start, let's just say the first day of school, I know I'm going to create, when you click create there, you have all these different options. Assignment is if you actually want them to turn something in. Quizzes are where you can have them do Google Forms that'll be like automatically graded. A question is just like a quick, this thing from the reading last night, like, what did you think? They're sort of more formative. And then material, though, is what I use every day to post the homework, because there's nothing that they need to turn in for it. It's just, if I click material and I'll say like homework, what's the first day? I think 9/1/2022. And in here, I can just describe like, read first 20 pages, whatever. And then you can attach something if you want to, if you, or let's say it's like watch whatever video, or read through a PDF. You could attach all those things, but then I'm just going to click post. Oh, and see right there. See, this is good. That's a good example, because I clicked post, but I didn't add the topic yet. So you can always edit these anytime. I forgot to put in a topic. So I'm going to click those three dots, edit, and then I'm going to put it. I want to make sure I put it in that topic, agendas and homework. So that's one of the most basic things I think that is useful for classroom, is always having the homework available there. I usually, for my regular class, I put in the agenda too, just because so many kids have to leave early for different reasons. So that way they also see, what you actually did in class, if there's anything they need to make up or, go through of something you did while they're out. So if you're starting like very, basic at the beginning, that's really one of the main things is agendas and homework, or homework. So if you create a topic and then just day by day create material, and you can just, it's as simple as just, if you have it like in a, in a Google Doc already, you could just paste in whatever the homework is or whatever they need to do. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of the very first thing. That's just posting basic homework. And I would also my recommendation is keeping that at the top, so the kids always know if they miss class, or if they want to know what they have to do for each class, they can see that right away. Whatever day they missed or whatever they need to make up. And you can create your topics in advance if you want to. If you already know, like, these are the books I'm covering, these are the lessons or units, whatever, you could go through and just right at the beginning of the year create all of your topics, and that way it's already kind of divided up for you. Or you can just do it as you go along. If you're kind of unsure about what the order is going to be, you can just create the topics as you go along. Okay, so yeah, the next thing, I know I kind of already touched on it, but there's two different views, the stream versus the classwork. The classwork is really where most of the attention will be paid, I think. The stream is kind of just an area for if you want to post any announcements and stuff like that. But I don't know how frequently people really will use that. Here, let's see. Let me show you one other cool thing though, for a class that I actually have students in. If you click on, with this class here, I had, 19 students in here, whatever. If I click on people and you check this little box to select all of them, you can click actions, and then you can click email, and it will open your Gmail, and it'll create a new message to all of them. Without you having to type that all in manually or anything like that. So that's kind of a handy thing. Under people, you just check, you can select, I just need to email these 3 kids or whatever, but that's kind of a quick, easy way, rather than composing a message yourself. Okay. So the next kind of the main use of this is for scheduling assignments and due dates. So that's the next thing I'll show you. Again, here, I'll go back to my kind of demo, one of these demo classes here. So if you click the classwork tab, and I'm just going to kind of use English because that's what I teach. But so let's say I know there's a new essay I want them to write. So if you click create an assignment gives you more options than what I had before with material. You can put in like points, you can choose a due date, you can add a rubric, which I'll show in a minute, but here. So you have to call it something. Once you put in a title, you can, I mean, I wouldn't want to assign this yet because it doesn't have any of the details yet, but I'm just going to put essay, and I'm going to say, write your essay in the attached document. And then I might have like a slideshow that, that I want them to refer back to. But if you click create here, I usually like to do this. I like to create a document for them. So I'm going to create a Google Doc. And then, oh yeah, here I'll just essay September. And then once you've created that, it'll show up here. Now, one important thing, if you're going to go this route, if you want to create something for them to write in, you want to change this from students can view file to make a copy for each student. Because then a new one will show up for each kid once they start working in it. And then over here, you can, let's say this is going to be 20 points. You can do things ungraded if you want, if it's kind of like a informal thing or a rough draft of something. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put a topic on, let's see, writing with my new topic. And then instead of choosing a due date here, let's just say if I had multiple classes, I'd have 3 blocks of English, right? If you click this little down arrow, oh, sorry, before I do that, where it says 4, this little down arrow here, let's say I want to assign this to this class, and this class. Then if you click the little arrow here, and I'll go over this again, but and then schedule, you can actually then prompt. So let's say here, I know English, this is on a blue day. So I'm going to put this one on, let's just say September 1st, and I want them to get it at 8:50 a.m. And then for them, it'll be due on whatever that next blue day would be. I think Labor Day's off, so we'll say that day. I don't usually put in a time. You can if you want. And the topic, I'll call it writing. And then I could do this copy settings to all, and it'll make them all the same. But I'll say, actually, let's say, yeah, that's also on blue, but I'm going to change the time. This one would be 1 p.m. And then this one, let's say this is a gold day. So I'm going to change that to, oops. Or well, I'll just keep it the same, but it's actually not going to let me. There we go. Change that to Friday. And then I could click schedule, and then it would show up for all of them. I'll do that now, and I'll just delete it again after. So it takes a moment to go. And then, yeah, so I can see it's in gray here. So that means it's not actually posted yet, but I can see that that's scheduled. That assignment is scheduled for September 1st at 8:50 a.m. Okay. I'm going to drag this around because, like I said, I like to keep that on top. But then that's how you just post an assignment or schedule an assignment. So it's create assignment, and then you just fill out all the details. But that feature where you can, that feature where you can click this little arrow and then do it to multiple classes all at the same time, that was new late last year. You used to have to go in and do it for each individual class. So that is kind of a handy thing now, that if you teach, 3 or 4 sections of the same thing, you don't have to do it individually. So like Jason, if you have, 2 blocks, but it's actually split up into 4 sections, that'd be an easy way for you to click this here, and you could, time it for whichever kids are coming on whichever day. You could do it all at one time. You could create all this at the same time, and then just schedule the different, dates and times for the various classes. So here, I'm going to delete that one. That's just a draft. The other handy things, or well, actually, wait, before I move on, let me just show you then. So I just created an assignment. Let me show you one from last year where so if I click over on my C block from last year, if I click classwork, here, I'll click on this one here. So the final exam, this is the iterative speech. If I click on this, the quick glance, it'll say 9 turned in, 7 assigned. That's a little misleading when it says assigned because so if you return the work with comments, or if you even return the work with a grade, if they don't resubmit it, it says it's still assigned, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's missing or that they didn't do it. But so let me go to the assignment. So if I click on the instructions tab, this is what I would have sent to all of them. It's worth 20 points. I typed all this out about following the directions and stuff like that. Here's some brainstorming that we did as a class. This is just a blank document that they wrote it in. But then if I click up here, on student work, then I can actually see just real quick, I can get a quick glance and see, who turned it in. Sometimes they'll say turned in late, or if it's missing, or some kids still like to just write it in a Google Doc and then share it with me. And I tell them they can't do that. They have to put it on Classroom, because I tell them I'm never going to keep it straight. If I have to go back to my inbox and search for it, if they say, oh, I wrote it, but I didn't put it on Classroom, I just shared it with you, I really make them put it on here, because that's really the whole point of this, is that I can see at a quick glance. Like I can see this one student, see it says 2 attachments. It kind of looks like he didn't do it. He just wrote it in another document and then uploaded it, which is fine. He didn't put it in the document I wrote, but usually I really try to stress that they put it in here. And so once I can see that they've turned stuff in, let's say if I click on one, this is kind of the view when you get student work. You can go really quickly back and forth with these little arrows from one kid to the next. And then you can put in comments over here. There's kind of like I usually put just a general comment, this like a private comment saying like, hey, I put some feedback on your essay. Let me know if you have any questions. And then I could type in the grade right here. If it's a rough draft, I usually don't do that, because ultimately the grades have to go into PowerSchool anyways. That's the one downside. You still have to transfer them. But when I'm first in this document here, this is on suggesting mode. So if I start typing anything into his document, it won't actually change his writing. It'll show up green. And then you can also add comments. Here, if I click this little down arrow, you can see that I don't have any comments in here already, because he already resolved them all. But if you click this, you can always see the comment history. So you can see like comments that I said, and then if he responded, or if he took my feedback or whatever, you can do that. And then ultimately you can give them a grade. And then, like I said, you just have to put the grade over in PowerSchool. That's unfortunately one thing that still doesn't really, it doesn't like export. But usually what I do is if I just have a list of grades, see, I actually didn't even, I gave them the grade on PowerSchool rather than on here. But yeah, that's kind of personal preference. But so that's kind of the gist of just assigning work. You can also,
do our grades, our exams or writing assessments automatically show up in PowerSchool, or do we have to enter them in manually?
Yeah, you do have to enter them in manually. So what I usually do is I just open a separate window with PowerSchool and then drag them or like side by side, so I can just quickly go from one kid to the next. But that is kind of one of the downsides. You do still have to type it over to PowerSchool manually. So a couple of the other things, yeah, this one, the question feature, I like that because that's just especially if we did like a reading the day before, or if we watched something and I just want to get a quick, I can see, did they read it or what do they think? You can type up the question here, and then they just start, the kids' answers will start popping up on my screen. And the good thing is they can't see each other's answers until they've already written their own. So like I say, if it was a reading assignment and I want to make sure they read it, they can't just kind of copy what one of their friends wrote. They can't see what the other kids have said until they answer. So that's a handy thing. I like using that as like a discussion starter. You can project that if you want, or if you could just keep it, private to you. So that's another good feature, I think, for kind of getting them involved and getting like a quick formative assessment for how they're doing. If you've taught a class before, or like I said before, if you have a teaching partner, you can reuse posts from other classes. So if Andrea and I are teaching the same thing and she's already created something, I could click this create, and then reuse post. And I could go to, let's see, her G block, and I could say, oh yeah, that's right. She did that, that cool activity, this, let's see here, these questions. I click that and reuse, and then I can edit it and update it. Let's see, just takes a second here. You can make it your own, so you're not, like I can, let's say, for mine, I only want it to be 4 to 6 sentences, but I can change this. I can change the, the due date or whatever. So it's due tomorrow. But that's a really handy thing. Like, she made up all of this stuff with these questions and all that, right? It says make a copy for each student. You can reuse it. This is also handy if you did something for your own class, but you only did it for one of your blocks, and you're like, oh, that's right, I want to do that for my other kids too, or my other section. You don't have to start from scratch. You can just reuse the post, and I could click assign, and then that'll show up in there in my student's feed as well. And it actually, for that one, because she had it in a category called miscellaneous, I didn't create a new topic, so it just did it automatically. It just edited the topic for me there. I could rename it if I wanted to, but I'll keep that miscellaneous. But so reusing your own work, like from a previous year, I'll show you another example. That's something I know I'm going to do. If I click create, I want to reuse a post. I'm gonna have to scroll all the way back here, but I know that on the first day of school last year, I had them all write me a student, or sorry, every student wrote me a letter. So if I scroll all the way down, oh yeah, here, and I want to have them, she did a letter to Mrs. Turner. So I'm going to reuse that, and I could update it to letter to Mr. Turner. But as you can see, all this work has already been done. So if you have things, or if your teaching partner ever does, you can reuse all these things, which is kind of handy. Here, I'll make a due date. But so yeah, reusing work, especially from year to year, that can be really handy too. You're not always starting from scratch if there's certain things you want to come back to. And then one more thing, this is another kind of newish feature that they added a couple of years ago, was rubric, that you can create and reuse rubrics. So let's just say I'll go back to this one real quick. I'm going to edit this assignment. Oh, actually, I think I can. Yeah. So even though I've already assigned this, if I click this plus rubric, create rubric, or I'm just going to reuse one that I already have. Here, let's see, from this, I'll just use this one that I made. See, it says rubric here, 5 criteria. It's about like viewpoint, evidence, analysis, persuasion. Once you've created this kind of thing, it makes it really quick and easy to grade, because you can, I have to find one where a kid actually did it, because I don't have any kids in this class. Let me go to here, my editorial last year. Let's see, is this it? Oh yeah. So see, for this one, I can read her editorial here, and then you can mark these little boxes here. And if I click around, I don't want to mess this up for her, but it'll auto populate the grade. So if this one is worth, let's see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one's worth 20 points. So it's 5 categories, 4 points each. If I click these, it'll automatically, like for her, this worked out to 18 out of 20. So if you click through these little things, it gives you a quick and easy way to grade it, to calculate the points. And then you could still write in a comment and say, oh, I think you need a little more work on the analysis. But it makes it, a quick way to give them an idea of how they're doing, especially like for earlier drafts. I find that pretty helpful. So creating the rubrics the first time takes a little bit of work if you want to go that route. But once you've done it, you can reuse it for different assignments or for different classes or whatever. But so let's see. Yeah, the creating the rubrics is also, I find that really helpful, because it makes the grading go a lot quicker. And especially when you, if I grade hers like that, I read it, grade through, give her a couple comments, and then I can go right on to the next kid, right? And I think some of these kids maybe were the ones who I was talking about. They maybe emailed me, but anyways, going through it works kind of easily for. I think it just makes it easier to grade quickly. So I know it's a lot, especially if you're brand new to it, if you've never used it before. A lot of this stuff is in those, like the video tutorials like I sent out earlier last week. And then one of the best things, if you're having questions or if you're unsure how to do stuff, or if you teach a certain subject matter, like I've never taught math, so I'm sure the way you use it in math is probably different, but there are so many, you can find a lot of great resources on YouTube for like subject specific things or best practices. But of course, I'm happy to, meet or talk to anybody if you have questions.
I have a question about grading. So if you have a quiz and it's a multiple choice and you have 13 questions and your quiz is worth 100, will it automatically do the math for you?
It will, yeah.
And those points, because I saw there was something on the quiz bit where you can assign values or something or points. I can't quite recall off the top of my head, but
that's right. And yeah, it will. So there would be a decimal, whatever that would be, like 8 point, whatever points.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll calculate it for you. Yeah, good question. Let's see. Yeah. Anybody else, even if it's specific to your.
I have a question, but I don't know if it's basic, but I was trying to fill out the faculty Google Sites link submission form. And then at the bottom, it asks for my Google Sites link. And this is my first time using Google. So I don't know, where do I find that basically?
Okay, yeah. So great question. So there's for Google Classroom, you won't really have to worry about that as much. That's more just for the Google site for this thing here, which the template. So once and this is in the email I sent, I think last Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay.
If you fill out this info, and then the next thing you'll have to actually wait, this is on the template. Hang on, I don't want to do it on this one. If I go to let's see, this one right here, when you publish it,
right?
Yeah, you'll hear it, and then you have to click this specific people manage, and then change it to the published site. You want to change it to just anyone. Oops, hang on, I can't see this. Sorry. Yeah, change to public because then parents can see it. And then click done. And then once you click publish, you'll see this little icon here, the paperclip, and you click copy the published site link, and you copy that, and then that'll be the link to your website.
Okay, I got that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, and I know the Google Site stuff that's new for everybody too, so I'm going to go over that at both division meetings. I know a lot of people that's a big shift too. Yeah, Jason.
Do you have any tips or tricks or things that I might not be aware of, which is everything at this point, on how to integrate Google Calendar into Google Classroom? So for example, if I have, once again, 2 sections for B block and another block, and I want to make sure that they know what days they're coming, I used to just Google Calendar integrated fairly well with PowerSchool Learning. How does that work with Classroom? Great
question. So when you create a class, it doesn't create a calendar right away, but once you have a class and you create an assignment with a due date, it automatically creates a calendar for that class. So if I click here, see on your main window for Classroom, you'll see a thing called calendar. If I click that and I have all classes, see, because these are those assignments I just made up, this assignment, those will start popping up right here in Google Calendar. Whoops. And you can even click on it. The kids would see this same view. Sorry, let me go back. Calendar. So they would see this same view, like let's say on Friday, they've got an English assignment and a math assignment, whatever. They would see all these right here in their Google Calendar. So any assignment, it shows up on the due date. Here, let me see. Mine might look a little wonky here if I have a bunch of different stuff, but oh yeah. So right here, these are these ones I just made up like as a demo thing, these little assignments, but the kids would see that. Oh yeah, they even see if they click in the calendar, they can see all the instructions and stuff like that for the assignment. So it integrates really well. Down here, yeah, these are these classes the ones I just made up, because I have a due date for them. They automatically create a new Google Calendar right over here on the left. So the kids would have that as well.
So I already created I already created little tiny Google calendars for each of my blocks in Google Calendar before I even started creating Google Classroom.
Okay.
is there any way to sync those specific calendars to Google Classroom, or should I have just waited to download the blocks?
I don't know if there is a way to sync it, like to join it up with another one, because it kind of creates it automatically, and then all those due dates are just also put in there automatically, so you don't have to do it. So that's a good question, but I don't know if there's a way to like sync it up with the ones you created, because it does this automatically.
So I'll have it within my Google Calendar, once I start putting assignments out, it's going to create another one of these little things in my my own Google Calendar, correct?
Yeah, with your Kimball Hall account. Yeah.
Got it. And so what if I deleted all of my Google Calendars for my various blocks? Because like you, I do them separately, so that way I can highlight them and just see that.
Yeah.
If I delete those and then go back into the Google Classroom interface and start to create little calendars for each of those classrooms, can I then go into, say, Pamela Hobson's downloads and download all of those blocks as well? Does that make sense?
Let me make sure I'm understanding, but well, the ones that are for your Google Classroom classes, those get created and kind of updated automatically based on what you put into Classroom. The block schedule is kind of a separate thing. You might want to go into Google Calendar and separately, like what I did, I created block schedule 2022-2023 calendar and imported that there.
Yep,
The blocks are in
that's what I
one.
do as well.
Yeah, and then the assignments though for class one, those would all show up just in their own unique Google Classroom calendars.
Got it. So if I wanted to say to B block, all right, this group of students comes this month on, the 4th, the 9th, the 12th, and group 2 comes on the 7th, the 14th, and et cetera. What's the best way of doing that in Google Classroom? Should I just remind them via stream, or maybe create a new doc under a topic?
That's probably what I would do. Just create a new doc under a topic, and then they could see that. And then once they're into the year, they'll probably know, like if they didn't go on the last Blue Day, then they come on the next one.
Yeah.
Like
After a month or two, they get it.
Right. Yeah. That's a good question though. I didn't even think about that, about the way that is different for the explorations.
David, another calendar question.
Yeah.
So can the parents access the calendar from the Google site?
Yeah, great. So great question. And I put this in the video, but there's one thing that Alex Roberts pointed out. There's one step you have to take that I'm going to explain at the meeting. But so if I go to this Google site here, and here you can add your calendar to your Google site. So for this one, the parents would see this assignment vocabulary lesson 1. So they will see here. Let me if I preview this, this is what it'll look like for the parents. And if they can click on that and they can see the details and things like that of it. For this one, I didn't put any details in there really, but yeah, they can see what's due when for the material for the assignments. Now, one thing that I didn't put in the video that I didn't realize, but I just have to also remind everybody that it's really easy to do this part, to add the, hang on a second, let me move this. Let me get out of the preview. In the calendar section right here, when you click down here, insert calendar, and then you just choose whatever your Google Classroom blocks are, that's all quick and easy. The one step I'll have to explain is you then have to go back to your Google Calendar though in here, and you'll have to change, if you click these 3 dots next to whatever classroom it is and do settings, and you have to make the calendar public. I hadn't done that before. So Alex was pointing out that he couldn't actually see. So that's just one step
that too. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Everybody's going to have to, oops, let's see, calendar settings. This window keeps covering up what I'm trying to see. Yeah, everybody's gonna have to click that make available to the public so that people would actually be able to see, the parents would actually be able to see. Otherwise, when they go to this window, this will just appear like you don't have access or whatever.
Right.
And obviously that's not helpful. But so the parents will be able to see anything with due dates. They won't see, like if you just post a material thing that's, says like, remember to read these pages or whatever, they wouldn't see that. But if it's an actual assignment with a due date, they would see that.
Okay. But if you added a due date to reading, if you said homework tonight is read these pages, and then you put a due date for the next class, then that would automatically populate.
Yeah, as long as but it just has to be created as an assignment, because material can't have like a due date. It can have a published date, but there's no due date. So that's kind of what we found last year too.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, and I didn't put that in my screencast or anything like that, but so I'm just going to talk about that at the division meetings about the calendars. But so hopefully that should make it easy enough for the parents to at least feel like they're informed well enough. They can see, you know, oh, you've got a science quiz on Tuesday or whatever. They'll be able to see all that if they check their kids' calendars.
Right, as long as there's a due date for the science quiz.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Assignment or any like assessment like that. If it's anything like that with a due date, like a quiz that has a date on there. It's just material that I saw doesn't actually pop up.
Okay.
Okay.
Quick question, how do you delete a test class that you've created messing around with this?
Oh yeah, good. I know that's what I'm gonna have to do. So let's see here. This one that I just made up today. If you click these three dots, you could just archive it, and that's fine. That'll go away. I'm gonna do that for a second here. If I click archive, and then if I go into my three dots here and I click archived classes, then I would click these three dots and delete.
Okay.
I often don't even buy. I mean, I'm sure I have something. Yeah, like from last year, I have this English test one. I mean, you can do that. But once I archive it, I don't even really worry about it. But yeah, if you archive it and then you can delete it.
So the delete option doesn't show up until it's archived.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think even then, oh no, I don't know. It might actually say it's permanently deleted. Sometimes like for the Google Sites, if I deleted a demo Google site, it'll say in 30 days, it'll be permanently erased or whatever. So if you do it by accident, you can get it back. But with Classroom, actually, I don't know if that's the case. I think it might just go away. And yeah, just one other thing I wanted to clarify too is when you're in here, if you do click this folder and you go to the actual like Google Drive for your class, you want to make sure you just don't really mess around with any of this. Sometimes it'll even say like templates do not edit or something. Oh yeah, this right here, templates do not edit. Because if you start messing with that, it's going to mess it all up for your stuff that's on Classroom. So you shouldn't need to use this feature of it that often, the actual going to the folder. But if you do, just be careful with actually changing stuff in there, because it might then also break the links or mess up the access on here.
So if we are new to this and have already created folders for, say, B block, intro to acting 2022, 2023, and I've brought all of my lesson planning, but now I'm going to have another folder in Google Drive, correct? That is pretty much the same thing. And you're saying, do not mix those two things up.
Yeah, basically. I mean, well, here, but you probably, I don't think, wait, sorry. Can you still see my screen there?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, just a second. Okay. If I go to my Google Drive, there's a folder over here in my drive called Classroom, but I never really go to that. I'm just, yeah, if I were to go into that, it's gonna have like all my classes in here. If you started poking around in there and messing with it, that could mix things up, but I just wouldn't even really worry about that. I think it's fine to, like, I have a folder too for my class this year, and I'll kind of pull from that for when I want to put stuff on Classroom. But I won't actually go into the, Drive, Google Classroom, A block, whatever, and start messing around with that.
So it's really just saving the stuff that you've entered directly into Google Classroom. It doesn't become a bank of past and present and future projects. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. But so the good thing, I guess, what that folder there is like, if I create, like if I create that final exam document, and I say create a copy for each kid, I'm actually the owner. So they can't like delete it or say like, oh, what happened to my, my thing? It's gone. It's in my account. So that's really one of the reasons for that it's also kind of stored in there in the Classroom folder. Because every once in a while you will have, I mean, every year it happens that a kid will do that. They'll try to delete something, or what I get every year is kids they'll turn in a blank document and they'll say like, oh, I did it. I don't know what happened. It's gone. Kids just kind of try that every year. But I mean, usually, you can say, well, let's, if you look at the version history or whatever, but that happens. Kids just, they try to say they turned it in and it got erased somehow, but usually there's either a backup or there's some kind of a history of it that you would be able to see.
And you said the master folder for this is called Classroom, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And so I never really, I just don't mess around with that. I just keep stuff separate. Like I have a new folder for this year where I put like my stuff in it that I know I'm going to want to use, but I don't go into the actual Classroom folder much.
The bag of tricks folder, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I said, sometimes I know it's easier to sit down one-on-one. So if anybody wants to do that at any point, or if you're like, hey, I'm trying this out, but can you help me, organize this or whatever, I'm happy to do that. I know it's so much info, and because I have been using it for several years, I'm sure sometimes I go over things quickly that I just kind of, it's something I've done a lot, so I'm not thinking about it. But there's no silly questions, or don't feel like, oh, I should know this, because there's stuff that I'm probably just skipping over or not explaining. So if you ever feel unsure about anything, please feel free to reach out and ask, and I'm happy to sit down with you for half an hour and help figure it out. Okay.
Thank you,
I
David.
could-
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm gonna post, or I'm gonna send out an email with the link to this recording and a couple of other things too. So if I went over something and you were like, that was too fast, I'm gonna go back over it. You can do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're very helpful.
Yeah,
Do
great.
you have a minute to take a look at how I've organized one of my
Sure.
classes to see
Yeah,
if
yeah,
it makes sense to you? I mean,
Yeah.
because I want to build out my whole class.
Okay.
for
Yeah.
the first trimester.
Sure. Yeah. Here, I'm going to stop sharing this, and then I'm just going to stop the recording. Yeah. Alex, you have a question?
When can I set a one-on-one up with you for like 30 minutes?
Sure. Let's see. Maybe like, I know Thursday we have the lunch.
Right.
Like after that, I think I know Mike Branch wanted to check in too, but are you around Thursday afternoon?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be around Thursday afternoon.
Okay. So maybe like, I know after the lunch, Mike Branch said he's one of the ones who couldn't make it today because he's away or he's going on the trip, but he wanted to ask me a couple of questions. But I was figuring I'll probably just be in the faculty center like Thursday after the lunch if you want to check in.
Okay, perfect. I'll do that.
Okay, I'll put it on my calendar.
I'll keep trying on my own until then, though. So thank you very much,
Okay.
David.
Yeah, of course. All
right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right. See ya. Here, I'm going to stop recording. Whoops.